So in this vlog, I want to kick out a couple of titles in my collection that I consider excellent pickup games or board games that can be played by anyone, wherever you are in the hobby, especially new players. Introductory games, welcoming games, the type of titles that we can sit down and play no matter where we are. Now, from that perspective, this idea that some of us might be part of a board gaming club or a group, you get together every week or at certain set times, and people play board games. You might have friends that you meet every week, but there also could be, depending on the location, if it's a local gaming store or a community center, you might have new people coming in to check out the hobby. And this is vital. I mean, certainly one of the aspects of board gaming for me is collecting miniatures and creating a great narrative, and you and I sitting down to have a good time. Winning a game is a co-op, but it's also about meeting people. It's also about building community, creating friendships. So I have a long-standing rule. I set up a title. I curate and select my titles that I bring for that very reason. If you want to give it a spin, you want to give it a try, you have a place at my table. So I prefer to play larger player count games like Zombicide or Talisman. And certainly I am fine with breaking the rules. If the game is only limited to 6 and we have 12 players, then we'll do it. We'll put down a few more spawn cards or we'll figure it out as we go. But the more players that can be involved in the game, I think it creates a nice synergy. So I tend to select titles that I'm going to bring. I mean, look, occasionally I do bring TI and we give it a go, but I try to select titles from that perspective that it can work with 6 players, 8 players, 10 players. It can scale. It can work from that. It's not limited to just here's the 4 heroes and here's the overlord. Now, from that note, Hero Quest is certainly one of those titles. The game wants to play with 4 heroes, but with the recent release of Hero Quest and certainly other custom modules, if you have older versions of it, you can add more characters. Okay, it makes the dungeon a little bit easier because there's more activations and I don't really change the monsters. But at this point, I've played so much Hero Quest, I can drive those monsters pretty well. I can play very, very tactically with that. And in that moment, if we have 6 or 7 players, I think the last Hero Quest game we had 6. If we have 6 players and I'm playing the Overlord, then it's about the exploration. Are they going to destroy me? Are they going to beat down all the monsters? Absolutely. But I still put up a really good fight. But from that perspective, it's about building that fun, building that discovery, building that community. So that's the first piece. I look and say, with the titles in my collection, what can I bring that can accommodate a wide variety of players? Conan is another great title for that. So we've got Conan, we've got Zombicide Black Plague, we've got Zombicide Invader, we have Hero Quest, we have Runebound 3rd edition, Runebound 2nd edition I really enjoy. It is certainly one of the top games that I regularly play, but this leads into the second part of it, time aspect. I want to give a complete picture. In theory, what I mean by that is I want us to sit down at the start of the game, enjoy the narrative, create the story, roll some dice, draw some cards, level up, have some fun, and end at the end of the evening. I don't want it to be, well, it's 9:30, the store's closing, we got to pack up, and like, wow, we're right in the middle of something awesome. So for that reason, Dark Souls is a game that I really, really love, and I've pushed up a lot of great Dark Souls, the board game thoughts on my channel playlist here under board games. But it's not one I always regularly bring to the club for pickup games. Certainly it can scale, especially if you have the Adventurer Pack, the expansion pack, but it is by design and the experience, it's a long game. Even if you're just fighting in Dark Souls, the board game, you level up, you get souls, you draw gear, you fight a bunch of minions, then you go for a mini-boss, and the mini-boss is controlled by AI cards. Does a really nice job. Then you go through and you fight a main boss. And then if you want, you can fight a mega boss. And the mega bosses are really powerful, really, really powerful, really, really awesome. But just fighting a mini boss takes a significant amount of time. It takes time to do that. You might not be able to finish it. Now, there's ways, of course, to speed that up. but we're going to talk about that for another time. But I try to select games that we can complete in that moment, at least one playthrough. Now, next is the visuals. And this is no surprise. Being a miniature wargamer, I tend to gravitate towards games that have a significant miniature component. Nemesis, Hero Quest, looking at Dark Souls when I do bring it, looking at Zombicide Black Plague, Zombicide Invader, Zombicide Modern. Now, Runebound 3rd Edition, it has character miniatures, and we've replaced some of the bosses with other Runebound figures from Descent from over the years. But it's mainly a token and card board type game, but I have upgraded some of it. But the visuals are important for me because one of the reasons that I enjoy playing analog games, well, in addition to digital, is the feedback, the picking up and moving of the pieces, the seeing the distance with my physical eyes, the picking up of the dice, and in that moment shaking the dice and saying whatever invocation to the gods to please just roll a couple of sixes because I really need to get some exploding hits or score some criticals, and rolling the dice and seeing them unfold, or seeing that unfold with my friends, that's part of the experience too. So I want to select something that is completely visual, that is completely at that top tier if possible. Now, I do sometimes bring Pathfinder the Adventure card game. It's a complete card game. There's no miniatures. The standees that I've upgraded don't necessarily count. So there are always exceptions to this, but I'm trying to build that checklist. The final piece is the game itself based on the culture. Now, I have Relic. Hopefully they will reprint Relic at some point. Relic is the Warhammer 40,000 reskin of Talisman. And certainly following my channel here under the board gaming playlist, Talisman, I love it. A lot of tactics. It has occupied a very, very interesting part of my board gaming life. So when they released Relic, which is a reskin of Talisman with some tweaks set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, where you can play a Space Marine, you can play an Inquisitor, you can play an Imperial Agent Assassin, you can play an Imperial Guardsman, you can play a Rogue Trader, and you go around and you level up and you get gear, and of course you can embrace the Dark Gods and get corrupted and all this stuff. It's a really, really fun and amazing game, and the artwork and the visuals are fantastic. But that is something that appeals. Certainly you can sit down and grasp the rules, but when you see that, it's like, well, that's like a Warhammer thing. If you're not immersed in the Warhammer 40,000 culture, it could seem a little weird. It's hard to pick up. Might not make sense. What's the point of this corruption? Blackstone Fortress is another great example. Blackstone Fortress, you can play through the campaign. You can also play through a random kind of dungeon delve. But Warhammer 40,000, chaos, cultists, inquisitors, this and that, it makes sense from a Warhammer 40K perspective. If you're outside of that, okay, it's a board game, but does it make sense? So I want to pick tiles. I want to pick titles that will immediately resonate with someone. Zombicide Invader, there we go. Space aliens running around. We have to escape the facility. We have to escape the space station. Nemesis, well, we understand. We wake up out of hyperspace. There's aliens on the ship. Zombicide Black Plague. Sword and Sorcery. Zombies. You see that from a distance. You're like, I don't even need to know the rules. I know the game right there. Somehow we got to survive. And there's a lot of pieces, and we're spawning and we're moving. I'm looking at Hero Quest. And I'm getting a lot of Hero Quest in because as of this vlog, it's been re-released and we're having a blast revisiting it. Hero Quest is just, it explains itself. It explains itself from that perspective. And the visuals look fantastic, of course, pulling into that. So I want to select a game that immediately makes sense, that someone can sit down, pick up the rules in 1 or 2 turns, and go from there and have an experience. And in building that, using that to showcase the communities that I'm a part of, using that to build friends and kind of cultivate that list so that when we feel like playing, let's play TI. You know what we haven't played in a long time? Descent. 1st edition. The big box. Let's pull that out. Certain titles. Let's try Mage Knight. And I say Mage Knight because I'm still doing my best. I won Mage Knight the other day. But did I really win it? I think I got all the rules right. I don't really know. Still at this point, I don't really know, but I had a good time playing it. Games like that certainly occupy an important place in your collection and in the community, but I don't think they're necessarily those gateway games. I don't think they're necessarily those introductory games. What are titles in your collection, or if you're part of a gaming club or a gaming group, what are some of those titles that get pulled down when there are new players to the group?